Welcome to Threads of Enlightenment, a podcast devoted to helping you overcome challenges in your life that prevent you from becoming the best version of yourself. Each episode features interviews with people from all walks of life about their journey of self-development and the principles they utilize to overcome their fears to achieve their desired outcome. Ready to be enlightened? Here's your host, Ken Primus.
Welcome to another episode of Threads of Enlightenment. As usual, it is my honor to welcome our guests because I know they're coming with a couple of things I deem very expensive. Their time, 24 hours given to every one of us. How we utilize time, man, is going to tell me a lot about you. It exposes your sins, as they say. The other is the journey. The journey is a powerful created Doc. Doc Banis is before us. And so I want to honor her for coming and spending these quality commodities with us here at Threads of Enlightenment. Doc, thank you so much for coming.
Well, thank you. I'm just delighted to be here.
It's an honor. I always ask this question on which I told you I gave you the answer. Usually I hold it back and just surprise the individual. But my question to you is, how do you serve mankind?
I serve mankind by releasing people from trauma, grief, pain, and guiding them into creating a new life that honors their old life as well as what they create, because that's usually something that is so freeing and enlightening, and it gives them absolutely not only just a new chapter, but a new breath, new, and it's very exciting to help people through that process.
Yeah, it's a wonderful position to be in, if you will, and that we are able to serve others. It is such power and freedom for us, so that when we are in that position, the power is the fact that we are afforded the opportunity to witness the birth of an individual. And
Yes.
there's nothing like that. And it humbles one. It keeps us humble to see that someone has trusted us and then to walk with them hand in hand to help them to see the greatness that is within themselves. And so it is a great place of honor to be there. So we thank you. One of the customs that we have here is to walk through our life, if you will. The space that we visit, I tell people, one of the very first spaces that we do visit for a few years, if you will, is that of the family. What was your family unit like?
Family unit. I don't know whether you're familiar with some of the U.S. Old movies, but my husband used to say I grew up in, I can't think of it, Mayberry on steroids, which...
Andy Griffith
Yeah,
Show.
it was a wonderful little town that was vibrant. It had several home offices, so they just required good education and good entertainment. And it was just one of those towns where, excuse me, I have a dog here.
Yeah, that's okay.
Where, it was small enough that if you as a kid did anything wrong, somebody saw you and told your parents. So, but everybody, looked out for each other. Yeah. I told you a little earlier that we're waiting for a big blizzard here, and I grew up in Michigan, that was common. But people would go out of their house and check on everybody, on all the neighbors, to make sure everybody was okay and they had food and all that kind of stuff. So, and kids, it was idyllic growing up. It really was. And my family was very close. We did all sorts of stuff together, and we were always kind of on the move, but my parents made sure we had lots of opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
On vacations, we visited all the battlefields and the historical things.
Wow.
But those are important.
Yes.
And of course it bonded our family because we were doing things together. And I think that was true for an awful lot of people in that community. I just feel like I had a fantastic youth.
That is awesome. I love the fact that you're talking about family because as I mentioned to you earlier, my family loved your state. We would go there and for vacation and bonded there as well. So I understand the importance of family coming together. Nothing is perfect, but when one comes together and do things as a family, there is some medicine there, if you will. Good medicine. As you're growing up, Doc, and you're moving through, how did this family and town, the Mayberry, I could see Andy Griffith walking around as they're whistling. As you are a child of this type of product, how did that impact you as a young individual growing up within that type of environment, if you will? How did you relate to others?
Wow. It was a big-hearted town, and I had lots of friends. It seems like everybody knew everybody in the high school, although my class had over 400 people, so it wasn't really tiny.
Mm,
And we just felt like everyone was friends,
yeah,
and the community would come out for football games and
yeah.
basketball games, and everybody supported each other, and that, I think, gave me the courage to do things that I might not otherwise have done.
Hmm.
And for instance, I learned to play the pipe organ, and that wasn't a normal thing. Most
Yeah.
kids don't go around
It's-
learning piano and pipe organ. I mean, to that degree. And nobody criticized. It's just okay. It was kind of what Lynn did, and I was a normal kid. I wasn't a nerdy musician or anything
yeah.
like that. Excuse me, musicians. I don't mean that in the negative, but
As a
I had
musician,
lots
we
of friends.
understand. As a musician,
Yeah,
yeah, we get it.
I had lots of friends, and we did lots of stuff together, and it was really great.
Yeah. And when you're heading to college, because this is impactful, here you are going to college, you had a good foundation, if you will, and you're looking and becoming an adult, as they say, because the goal is as we become independent of parent and all of these different things, that is what we strive for. As you're heading into your college years, what field of study did you pick and why did you pick it, Doc?
I started out as a music major at the University of Michigan.
Hmm.
And talking about me not being nerdy, I couldn't understand why people decided they wanted to stay at the music school and practice instead of going to Big Ten football games. So I figured I wasn't really cut out to be a full-time musician. Um, and then I went to a small college in Wisconsin, liberal arts college, which was another wonderful experience because it was one of those schools where, professors mingled with the students. If it was a nice day, you might go sit on their porch or under the tree or something and have class. And I changed to education because way back when there weren't a whole
Hmm.
lot of options.
Yeah.
So that was something though that I loved. I loved working with kids and teaching them. And I did that for I maybe 10 years after I graduated. So that worked
And
for
what's
me.
after you were with the kids, and again, being with the kids for so many years, you get an opportunity to see many, many, many personalities and all of those different things. What did you learn in that period of your life?
I think a really important learning is that kids aren't small adults, but they have an incredible view of the world, which we try not to squelch in school, but unfortunately we do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so one of the things I did, which was different, and you could never do it now, at least in our education system, was that, if we were studying math, I had them create, quote unquote, run a pizza parlor and figure
Yeah.
out, using language arts and using math and using geography. And I tried to help them see how the world was intertwined. And so
Wow.
if we make a decision in one area, it may very well impact another.
Well, yeah, it's as they say, the synchronicity of life and living. And
Hmm.
when I'm a Christian, and I studied religion, if you will, but I don't like that terminology. But I've also studied quantum physics and stuff like that. And you could see when you look into it at that level, you'll see the correlation of us being like this and how one decision affects another, a ripple effect, as they call it. And the intertwinedness of us all is very noticeable as we move through life and so forth, and we become aware of it. I think one has to become aware of it, because we mentioned earlier. Here you are, you're this teacher for many years, and you met your hubby, and you guys are in love and so forth. And as life goes on, Doc, there are darkness within life that comes into our life. There are periods of ups and downs. Life is not a linear thing. And when those dark time comes, it affords us lessons for us to go into human school, if you will, and begin to extract some data. In your life, I know that there are hard times come to all of us. The Bible says there's a phrase that it rain on the just and the unjust. So there's rain coming all the time.
Yeah.
How did you handle the rain?
Different circumstances, of course, were
Yeah.
more difficult than others. But for
Hmm.
the most part, I'm pretty positive. I did go through a divorce, and that was a big shakeup for me. I realized that I had lost myself, and that was a huge, huge realization. And I
Yeah.
think that helped me further in life because I went on to get a master's degree and then a doctorate. And then I started working in corporate America so I could help people with their mindset and their worldview and help them understand that they were strong
Hmm.
and that they could handle these things. And together we would figure it out, what would work for them.
Yeah. Let's talk a
So I
little.
used that and it was good.
Yeah, let's talk a little, Doc, about the divorce because I've been through that and it's a painful time. And as we talked before, I said we have a tendency while on this planet to associate ourselves with our position as that's as a wife, as a husband, as an
Mhm.
employee. That's our identity.
Exactly.
And it's not until something tragic happens in our life, and it's a shame that we usually have to wait until that happens because we don't, when life is going good, everybody's just bouncing around, smiling, having a
Mhm.
good time. But when times go dark, if you will, the rain comes, it affords us some opportunity to really look and see what are we doing? And
Mhm.
here you are, you had an opportunity after the divorce to look at yourself and say, wait a minute, my identity was this wife, this woman, this partner, whatever.
Yep.
And I got lost. Talk to us about that because there are a lot of people, men and women, Doc, that are lost
Yes.
within their relationships, within their life, dealing with work and the work identity, the husband identity, wife identity, father, mother, whatever that identity is. Give them some advice around this particular time because you mentioned mindset and all of that does help as we get older and grow in our self journey. How did you handle that awakening to find you?
Probably not real well. Um, but I think what happened, and I didn't realize this until well after the divorce. I married at 20, so we were young, and I really, really did identify myself as his wife.
Yeah.
And I figured out later that what happened was that my concept of marriage was to have a family like I did growing up, of course, because that was my
Hmm.
model.
Yeah.
And my dad came home every night for dinner and so forth. And my husband chose to be in the Navy and he was gone more than half the time. So
Wow.
I was raising three girls by myself and handling everything. And it got really tough. It got really overwhelming. And I just felt like I couldn't do it anymore. And I had
Yeah.
told him at one point, a time may come when I just can't do this and I'll have to walk away. But it's still, it was very, very upsetting. And I didn't know, obviously, what the future was.
Uh-huh.
Was, um, I was in postgraduate school. And so I was preparing for something new. But I think that the pain I saw all around me was kind of a catalyst. My children would cry themselves to sleep at night because daddy wasn't there for a birthday or a holiday or whatever. And so I always stepped up and, but it's hard to be a parent consoling a child that is that heartbroken.
Yeah.
And you're heartbroken too because there you are alone and you want the person home too.
Yeah.
And I realized that my whole concept and vision was smashed. So that's what really made me reevaluate and decide that I just couldn't do it anymore.
And once you got there, Doc, and you start to reevaluate, what were some of those evaluations that you began to see within
One of them
yourself?
was who am I? What do I do? Who do I want to be? And my family has always been first and that well, it still is. And so, I really concentrated on my kids and made sure that they had what they needed both emotionally and physically and all around.
Yeah.
But I was also forging a new path as a career. So, I think one of the things that I have always done is keep plugging.
Yeah.
And my parents always supported that. You keep trying to move forward, do your best work. And so that's what I focused on.
Yeah. That generation, that's their mantra, if you will,
Mhm.
where, keep your head down and keep going, keep working
That's
way
right.
through it, as they say. And as you'd mentioned earlier previously that you began to get some insight into mindsets and stuff, changing mindset because you became a teacher of that when you entered into the corporate world. What happened in your life to cause you to then look into the mindset approach to living?
Well, I guess part of it was my mother. She was very practical and pragmatic, but she was always positive.
Hmm.
And I saw how that helped her succeed and move forward in life, and that she didn't get stuck. She didn't allow herself to get stuck in negativity, negative
Yeah.
thinking. And that was something that I think she passed on to me.
Mm.
And I realized that that was a real gift that she had because she could spread that, now I would call it vibration,
Yeah.
to people around her, and people were happy when
Yeah.
they were near her. And you didn't get this circle of folks complaining
Yeah.
about things and talking about how terrible things are because, I thought, well, what's the point of
Yeah.
that?
Wow.
If that's the way you see the world, that's the way the world's going to be.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be there.
That's a powerful sage, if you will. Some cultures will call your mom
Yeah.
someone with that type of effect, a shaman, someone that affects the village, if you will. And when people come around that individual, the energetic level of that individual will raise and rise everyone up, where it's palatable, if you will, to the effect that that individual have on others. As you are moving through life and you're learning from mom, you got that, because that is a beautiful thing about, as you mentioned, energy. And there's this thing about energy, and I tell people we are a being of energy.
Mhm.
And one of the laws within the energetic field is called karma. And people, Doc, when you say karma, everyone always talks about the bad thing of karma, but karma is much more than that. It's a rewarder of your behavior. Now, if you behave correctly, if you will, if you share love and so forth, karma will reward you. You will have rewards, appropriate rewards based on that behavior. But if you also, on the other side, the reciprocal piece, you misbehave, if you will, karma will come to not to break you. It comes to help you to re-evaluate your behavior. Why? Because we're talking about this interconnectiveness. And so if you're going to treat someone bad, karma wants to come back and say, several years later, it'll show up in a different form. It'll come back and say, for you to begin to investigate, why are you doing this? No, I need
Mhm.
to fix that. I need to change my behavior. So karma is here as a teacher, as a guide to walk with us, good or bad. So here you are. Mom is pouring all this wonderful stuff. You are getting all this stuff. You're learning, you're experiencing life. Talk to us about and we've read about those things, the dark day of the soul, when stuff really happens. Now we're going to go on a different type of journey. Talk to us about that, as to what happened to you that ushered you into this individual that you are today.
I think, of course, everything that you experience in your life is part of that, part of preparing you and building you to deal with what you have at the moment facing you. In postgraduate school, I fell in love with studying human behavior
Hmm.
and organizational behavior. I went into training and development as my first job at Children's Hospital, and it became so important to me that leaders learn how to work with and treat their employees,
Hmm.
because I could see, even back then, it was, before a lot of leadership theories that we have now, but I
Yeah.
could see that if you're happy, obviously, you're going to want to do things, and you're not going to be that person that says that's not in my job description. And if your boss is treating you well and taking the time to find out about you as a human being and is fair and all those things that go along with good leadership, that's what I focused on teaching people. And then eventually I got into corporate America, and I did the same thing at a big six consulting firm. So I was able to go all around the world working with companies and their leadership, that my purpose at that point was helping leaders be the best they could be. And so I learned all sorts of techniques to help do
Yes.
that.
Yeah. You learn all these. What were some of those techniques? Because those are important. Those are the tools. Those techniques are the tools that we utilize to make changes, if you will, to affect changes in our life.
Mhm.
One of the tools that affected change in me was meditation that guided me. There's thousands of other tools that I was a product of corporate America, so I know of some of those other tools there. What were some of those tools that you saw that was very effective correcting one's behavior, assisting them in approaching life and dealing with others differently?
An interesting one, and it's turned into a game now called headbands.
Hmm.
And I did a lot of activities in
Yeah.
training. We did all sorts of things to show people, how certain behaviors impact others. And so this particular technique is you give everybody a headband, but they aren't able to see the name that's on it. And
Hmm.
what it says on it is something like funny person, a very negative individual. Nobody likes this individual, or a leader, all those different things. And they are given a discussion to run, and they are to act as they see it on somebody else's forehead.
Hmm.
And then you debrief it, and it's like, nobody wanted to talk to me. Everybody hated me. So that was a fascinating study. And there were lots of things like that I did where they were able to debrief it and realize what certain behaviors do. Because you know what? Not many of us are very good at seeing ourselves in a mirror,
Right.
and we don't understand how our behavior is impacting people around us.
Yeah.
So that was a big, big thing to teach people. Lots of people just go around with their head stuck in the sand and do what they do, and
Yeah.
don't think about the impact they're making on others.
And today, talk to us about how are you affecting change in others? Because I know you're the demographic that you work with now. How
Mhm.
did you come about entering into this space that you're in right now as far as working with this demographic of folks?
Okay. I don't think we've mentioned that. At this point, I am a resilience coach, transformational coach. I work with people who have suffered a fairly large loss. It could be a spouse, it could be a job, it could be a traumatic accident where they've lost mobility or something like that, even losing a job.
Hmm.
It all affects our identity. And we
Hmm.
talked a little bit about that before. So I work with those sorts of people to help them move from the grieving, the isolation, the stuckness.
Hmm.
And we spend a lot of time with things like self-limiting beliefs, values, those have to be aligned. And we work on who they want to be, who they see themselves, and what would they have to believe if they wanted to be that person. I work with them around what it's like when they're in flow.
Yeah.
Not only what do they do and how do they do it, but other people. What's the circumstances that support them being their best? And we take all of that information and start building, the new identity, the vision for their future. And, we end up with a roadmap and then move them into creating that future, actually living it.
I hope you guys are listening. And Doc, I always try to educate my audience to learn to transition to become a hearer of what someone says and not just listening. It is the hearer that will change and act and become a disciple. Once become a disciple, I said discipleship means that you would be disciplined in producing certain things so that you can have a certain outcome. So here you are, you're doing marvelous work because most of us live right where you talk about when we live where our identity belongs to the job, belongs to the marriage, belongs to everyone else but to us.
That's right.
How, and usually trauma, as we mentioned, some type of trauma will give us the opportunity to begin to look at us as an individual. Talk to us about that particular space right there. And many traumas, there are all different types, as we
All sorts
mentioned,
of
Doc.
them. Yeah.
When someone is there on the initial stage, since we have been there, what is
Okay.
the first thing you want to say, you would say to an individual who is now on stage one, and they're about to start this play?
Okay. I can answer that, but I do want to say that I don't work with people until they've moved to the point where they can regulate emotion,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't believe, they have so much brain fog, they
Yeah.
can't make really good decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't want anybody to make a decision that was a bad decision and that they ended up, being very unhappy with. But that early stuff, I mean, you're traumatized.
Yeah.
You are absolutely traumatized. And that's a time when you are so confused and feels like the floor has dropped out from under you. You don't know who you are. You don't know what to do next. You have no idea what the future is. And you're in pain. You're
Mm-hmm.
in deep pain. That is a time that I think people need to just be kind to themselves and try to come to the realization that this has happened, that it is real, and that they need to do things to keep themselves out of that negative area of isolation. So many of us, our first
Yeah.
instinct is to, pull everything in and
Mm-hmm.
be in a safe little cocoon. And unfortunately, our society encourages that
Yeah.
because people don't know how to act, what to say. And so that's, I think, one of the big reasons why they stop checking in on you. They stop coming to visit you. They don't stop by your desk at work just to have a chat because
Mm-hmm.
they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And so part of your job as a grieving person, and you can't do it right away, but is to teach your family and friends how to treat you. So if someone calls and said, I don't know what to say, tell them, I really appreciate you just checking in, and you don't have to say anything. You can just sit with me and let me work through this. You don't have to say a word. I just need to know you're there supporting me.
Yeah, I wanted you to address that from your experience now, because when we get there to that first stage, it is a painful stage. It can be dark, and some people can lose their way there. And so your advice is noted, and what Doc said is exactly how I had to learn how to manage myself right there. It's very important. Remember that you're not alone. And that's why you have folks like Doc who's gone through these situations that are familiar with that first stage. Even though she doesn't take one there, but she's familiar with it. She knows exactly what is going on there. So
Mhm.
when someone shows up at your arena, if you will, your desk, and they said, "Hey, Doc, I'm here. I'm thinking a little clearer," if you will. When they're there at your place, Doc, how do you approach that encounter, if you will, with all of your knowledge that you've gained through your journey that you've been through? You've studied mindset about learning how to reprogram one's thoughts and all these things, dealing with the thoughts. How do you show up, if you will, when someone presents to you and saying, "I need your help. I'm here."
Okay. It's really important for me to get some background
Yeah.
to find out what they've experienced and how they've handled it. And to figure out where they are, what they've worked on, if anything, and to create that trust that I am not going to criticize. I'm not going to tell them what to do, but I will help them explore and find out what's going to work for them.
Mm.
So that, setting that stage and the expectations, I think is really important because they need to know how we will work together. I want people to understand that they will not be alone and that I'm there to support them and I'm not going to leave them. But then, once we figure out where they are, then I can start putting them through the process that I explained to you. And it's not linear. It's I adapt it all the time to
Yeah.
wherever the
That
client is.
individual. Yeah.
So, we work together and then I give them homework. We go try this, find out how this works, do this for 5 days or whatever until we meet again and come back. And then what we do is we talk about their wins. How did it work?
Hmm.
Why do you think it didn't work? How could we tweak it? Are we on the right path? All of those kinds of questions so that we're really looking at this together
Yeah.
And I try to ask questions that help people look at things from different perspectives, maybe not
Yeah.
one, but several perspectives, so that the world begins to open up for them.
Yes.
They're in that mindset that this is all there is,
Mm-hmm.
or is this all there is?
Yes.
And is the rest of my life going to be like this?
Yeah, that's
Or how do I
beautiful.
get out of here?
That's beautiful, Doc, that you bring in the different perspective in there. And the homework piece is important because you have to be vested in yourself, and that's one of the things that will determine whether you stay, how long you stay in your mess. I
Yes.
worked in a skilled nursing facility, and I remember families would ask me when a family showed up with stroke or whatever, they'll say, how long are they going to be here? And I said, well, that depends on that person right there, your mom or dad, or whoever
Mhm.
is in there, and they will tell us how long they're there. And I've seen people stay there and I've seen people come out, and it's all because of their mindset. So here you are, you're addressing that individual, you're making them a partner, you're working with them as a partnership to
Exactly.
work with them, assignments to try and to navigate and learn. Invite us to one of those precious moments, I call it, when we, as an individual, we get an opportunity to see from those different types of probing and adjustment where one would begin, you see it, you see that new perspective, creating a new belief, if you will, as they're moving through it. Talk to us about one or two of your clients that you saw that
Sure.
transition and the birth that it gave to them.
Let me give you a couple examples. I had a client who really wanted to just hunker down and stay in their safe little home and not go out. We were working on the loneliness aspect. I mean, the person was really lonely, but there was a lot of fear around doing things and a lot of reluctance. And I said, let's figure out somebody that that you trust. And it happened that that person called and said, would you like to go to coffee? And
Mm-hmm.
my client said, well, my first thought was no. I hate small talk and I don't feel like small talk. But she said, something inside of me whispered, just do it. So I went and she said, you know what? For the first time, I sat across from somebody at coffee that didn't try to fix me,
Yeah.
that didn't fill the air with platitudes,
Yeah.
just sat with me. And she said, I realized that there are people like that out there and that it's not so scary and that I can do this.
Yeah.
So that was a big breakthrough because then she was able to discern the kinds of people that were going to be supportive to her.
Yeah. You have to find your tribe. You have to
You do have to. You
find
do
that
have to.
tribe. Yeah. And personal development is not for the faint of heart. It takes a lot of work. It lots of discipline, a lot of digging and uncovering and adjusting. And that is until you leave this plane. And that's the beautiful thing about it, is that it goes on and on and on and on. And I think that's shows how deep we truly are as individuals. And so
It
it's
does. And,
wonderful.
it's interesting because things keep kind of morphing.
Mm-hmm.
And don't expect to come out with a final answer
Yeah.
because there's never a final answer.
Yeah.
Things change and get better and sometimes a little worse. And, you go back and forth, but always with that positive mindset and an eye on your vision,
Mm-hmm.
it will continue to get better and better, maybe bigger, but it will adjust to what you need to be doing
Yeah.
at the point you're in.
Yeah. And guys that have been listening to us, I know many of you, I wanted Doc to stop and talk about that initial pain, because that place right there. And then I wanted her to talk about our process of what she does and how she works with individuals, because a lot of us are there. A lot of you guys are listening there. You were there at the first stage. I have someone that understands the first stage, and she has products and all those different things to help you out. She gave you some advice. I suggest you guys go back and listen to it. But by the time you get to her and you're ready to get to her, remember who she is and what she has done and she's capable of and what she has done. The mind. Talk to us, talk about the mind, this tool that is a part of us that, when utilized correctly, will change our life. Talk to us about that power that is there.
Absolutely. People don't realize it, but the minute we have some kind of tragedy or trauma, whatever we want to call it, our brain starts to rewire itself because one of its big jobs is to keep us safe.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of creates, let's say, a map utilizing who we interact with all the time and, things and places and all that kind of stuff. So it's probably one of the reasons why we can get up in the middle of the night and walk through the house and not bump into absolutely
Hmm.
everything,
Yeah.
because it's made this map of where everything is. So this trauma happens, and let's say you've lost a spouse, your brain is going, wait a minute, that entity isn't here. So I have to figure out how to keep this person safe in a new environment.
Yeah.
You changing and experiencing so much during that grief process that it takes the brain a while to adjust, because things keep changing, and get to a point where you're more stable, and it does make decisions for us. It drives us. And the mind is an amazing, amazing addition to, and what makes us human, I think, or allows us to be human, because we have all the emotions, and everything is directed from it. But I think that it is pliable. We know that.
Hmm.
And we know we can rewire it, which is one of the things I do with people, is to help
Yeah.
them move that process along a little bit. But it wants to be utilized. It wants to have you question things. It
Yeah.
wants you to observe more than just your little, blinders will normally show you. In NLP, there's a tenet that says the map is not the territory,
Hmm.
which is kind of an interesting way to look at things, because I have this map of where I live, in my mind. I know what's happening here, but that's not the territory. The territory is our whole universe.
Yeah.
And I'm not aware most of the time of what's happening in different parts of that universe. I just have this little mind, little area blocked out for myself. And so your mind is wanting you, and is a lot, and will allow you, and you are capable of expanding that. And
Yeah.
when we can expand and take in different perspectives, that's when we grow.
Yeah. It's that.
That's when we can
Yeah.
begin to break out of stuckness.
Yeah. It's that uh, um, entrance of other perspective is the key. That because we are locked into that perspective that has kept us, for lack of a better word, in bondage for so
Mhm,
many years. And
mhm.
when we are introduced to other perspective concerning our situation, that's that revelation. And when we get it, that freedom comes within that, and people begin to express that freedom, and it's a beautiful thing to
Absolutely.
watch.
And there's nothing for me like that point when all of a sudden that realization happens, and you see the light bulb go
Yes.
off, and you see the heaviness lift.
Hmm.
It's like, all that weight is gone, because I realize there is a light at the end of the tunnel. I
Yeah.
can have a different life. And, that's the most exciting thing. It's exciting when they get to that different life, of
Yeah.
course. But that realization point is just, it's just so good, so wonderful to experience.
Yeah, and those of you that have started your journey and you're walking through, and you need some help, you've gone through the initial stages and stuff like that. You need additional guidance, if you will. We're going to present and put all of Doc's information so you can have access to her, because it's important to pursue your freedom. There's nothing like it. And once you obtain your freedom, the freedom first comes within yourself. And when you have that freedom within yourself, you're free to operate and work within this realm of ours that you have outside of your being. And it's a wonderful life. And we welcome you guys to come and explore that life. And I know that Doc does too. So here you are, Doc. It's 2025. I'm asking this question because I think it's a point you won. What is your advice to all of us that are in walking in this madness that we are in today, and you are able to reach out and you have a stadium, if you will, a podium, and you are going to give us this advice, that this strong pull that you sense that we would need in order to assist us to make the next step? What would that be?
My advice is take stock and go mentally back through your life and identify those things that have happened in your life that have made you strong, that have given you skills and abilities. Because I can guarantee you that all of those life lessons are in you, and you are much stronger, much more capable than you feel like you are right now. So, count yourself as being totally blessed, and capable of handling this. And the thing is that if you really, really feel stuck, then you need to find a mentor, someone like me who can take you by the hand and walk you through the process. You don't have to do it by yourself.
That is the best advice there is, and I'm going to leave it there. Doc, thank you, Dr. Banis. Thank you so much for coming to Threads of Enlightenment and lifting our spirits, giving us some insight as to how we ought to behave, adjust our mind, change our perspective, obtain our freedom. And we have someone, guys, that are here. I'm going to provide it. I want you guys to get in touch with her, get into her space, gain knowledge and gain a new perspective and gain your new life. Doc, thank you so much for coming to Threads of Enlightenment.
Thank you so much. It was a great conversation.
Thank you, Doc.
Thanks for tuning in to Threads of Enlightenment with Ken Primus. Hopefully you're now feeling more empowered to overcome the challenges in your life, whatever they may be. Share that inspiration with others by telling them about this podcast, rating it, and of course, remember to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. For more connection, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram by searching for Threads of Enlightenment. Until next time, stay enlightened.